Yes, guys, I'm Si. Welcome to Cardiff City World. This is the Breakdown podcast with some breaking news, I guess, as well as looking at yesterday's game. There is certainly a lot to discuss. And I got caught in two minds because I don't think it's anything to celebrate, particularly because I think Cardiff City as a football club is in an absolute mess. Yet another manager gone, players which I think certainly have question marks against their attitude and application, regardless of who the manager is. A disgruntled fan base and a club which ultimately cares very little about its relationship with the fans. So it certainly feels like that way a lot of the time. But we'll dig into it. As always, please get your questions, your comments, everything in the live chat on Twitter and YouTube, of course. Please do like and subscribe, share, all that good stuff. It really helps us out a lot, especially with the YouTube algorithm. Comments and stuff like that help massively, and shares on Facebook seem to help as well. But yeah, it's an interesting one, and this kind of tonight's show is going to be almost broken down into two halves. Really, we're going to obviously talk about Erol Bulut, but we're also going to talk about yesterday's game. I had a beautiful seat. I was literally in the row behind the Leeds United bench. Had a wonderful view with my son and a couple of friends. But do you know what? It was. I was going to jump on live with Matt and Reese last night, and I decided against it because I was so angry and disgruntled is probably an understatement. I was so angry, it was emotional, and that's why I tend to do my match reactions 24 hours later, just to give myself a bit of breathing room, because I don't want to become like people's clicks and clips. Sorry, where I just lose my head because I was fuming last night. I disgusted. I gotta be honest. I've never seen a professional team, let alone a Cardiff City team, retreat the way that we did last night, yesterday. Leeds would get the ball from the very first minute. This was as well. Leeds would get the ball, from their keeper, or their defence would get it, and Cardiff City would actively retreat backwards, and we then wouldn't engage them into any sort of tackle until they were about 30 yards out from our goal. And I was just disgusted by it, because the passion, the emotion that everything was going around yesterday, that team of footballers, regardless of what the tactics are and the manager, and we'll of course get into that. But what they could and should have done yesterday was start fast and put some tackles in and get a crowd up, because the crowd wanted to be up. The crowd wanted to support the team yesterday. Pretty much unanimously throughout the week, people had said they're going to try and leave the frustration and the negativity around the manager away from yesterday and just try and get behind the team and make a tremendous tribute to Sol Bamba. That's what the fans wanted. That's what the club wanted. So to then start in such a passive way. And for me, yesterday's performance was the worst performance. The last three games have got worse and worse and worse. The Borough game, the Derby game, even the first half against Swansea. And look, ultimately, the signs have been there since last year. I think people like myself were hoping that with his own players and with a change in coaching, that he might address some of the issues that had been not only brought to him, which he's obviously read in the media and stuff like that, but he's been spoken to about the club, about the way his tactics were and the way he was playing. At least twice, I know for a fact, but I'm sure more than that, twice in meetings. And here's my thing, right, is there's been no change. Yeah, you look at that squad, and I'll say this, I said this the other day, you look at the squad of the Cardiff City have got on paper, and I would put that up against most of the teams in the Championship on paper. Yeah, we're bottom of the league with 1 point, and more worryingly, against Leeds United at home, not only did we retreat and passive and cowardly performance, in my opinion, we had two shots from my memory. One was a free kick from Ruben Colwell, which the keeper saved, And then the second one was a Ruben Colwell shot, which went over and wild towards the end. That's the only two shots I remember. There was a point in the first half where Ruben Colwell won the ball back off I'm pretty sure he won the ball off the Leeds centre-back halfway into the Leeds half, drives at the remaining defenders, and there's nobody with him. You've just won the ball. So if you're a team which Erol Bulut setting up or whatever, it's a team which plays on a transition and a counter-attacking team, the basic premise of that is when you win the ball, you have got runners and you attack at pace to catch your opponents out of position. We win the ball back off their centre-back and nobody wants the ball. It's just embarrassing. I was so disgusted yesterday. And look, say what you will about Erol Bulut. You know, I understand people have wanted it. There's been people who've wanted him since last year to go and they didn't want him to get a new contract. I understand that. Going into this season, I believe that there was a fair amount of positivity surrounding the signings we made because we brought some real quality in. But what I cannot get my head around and what I will not just brush under the carpet as if it's all on Erol Bulut or it's all the board's fault is how many of these players down tools. Now, you tell me, if they turn up next week and magically they remember how to care about Cardiff City and they remember how to run around a little bit, that's not just because of the tactics. It was Ampadu, it wasn't the centre back. But that's not just down to the tactics. Like passion, intensity, attitude. Every individual player should have that. And where I was sat, right, I could see I was right behind Farker and the Leeds bench, and then obviously Erol's to the left with the Cardiff bench, right? And I can see the differences in the managers. I can see the differences in the way the players engage with the managers when he's giving instructions. I can also see the different benches and what's going on the benches. I had a real close-up view where you could actually hear some of the conversations going on as well, right? And what I will say, first and foremost, is Leeds United conducted themselves, their fans, everything so well yesterday. And anyone who knows me knows I absolutely hate Leeds. But you can't fault the way they conducted themselves yesterday, the way their staff and everyone conducted themselves. But what I would say is one team was professional, and I'm talking about the backroom staff, the bench, the way they go about business, and the other team was just absolute shambles. At one point, Erol Bulut's he's trying to tell Callum O'Dowd in the second half to push up, to get further up, because he's effectively playing as like a wing back. And Callum O'Dowd is telling him no, and he's holding his position deeper. Now, whatever, like, I get it. You can't hear what's being said, and then maybe there's more context to it. But like, that was something which I saw more than once from a lot of different players, them ignoring him or waving it away. Now, there's two sides to it now. The one side is, you could say they've just got so fed up and sick of him that they know he's gone. And this is another thing which I'm going to get onto in a minute, but they kind of just had enough of him. But then the other side of it is like, while he's the manager, you got to do as the manager tells you. Like, that's your job, to play football for Cardiff City and do what the manager tells you. So that's an issue. And then on the other side of things, you had Erol Bulut in the first half. Nothing particularly happened, but like the ball went out or whatever, and it was breaking play. He comes over to the bench and he's like screaming at Omar Issa and then one of the other coaches. He was directed at Omar, and I'm just thinking, if he's willing to behave in that manner on the side of the pitch, what the hell is going on the training pitch? We look so uncoached, but like, I just couldn't believe the way that he was addressing him. There's clearly issues between those two. I heard all sorts, which I can't really go into details because I don't want to get sued. But like, what I will say is that there's been reports, rumors, whatever, that they were pulled apart in training last week by a player. It's absolute shambolic from top to shambolic, or maybe the other ones were better. Shambolic from top to bottom, and then you have the 14th minute. Everybody knew about it. I know for a fact it was communicated to all the players, to the playing squad, the staff, the coaches. Everybody knew 14th minute, the picture's going up on the screen. Everyone's going to stand and applaud. Only people who don't stand and applaud is the Cardiff City bench. That is a disgrace. Absolute disgrace. And I will not have this excuse that, they didn't realise, because there was people around the ground, including myself and my son, who didn't realise that we'd got to the 14th minute. But when everybody around you starts standing and clapping, when the Leeds bench starts standing and clapping, where the whole ground is standing and clapping, what, you're telling me they didn't realise? Bullshit. It's a lack of respect and just a lack of care. They just don't care. They're just not interested. They're down tools by then. The only players yesterday who deserve one iota of credit, in my opinion, again, it's only my opinion, is Jack Alnwick showed why he should have been playing for God knows how long, both with his feet and his shot stopping. It was absolutely excellent, didn't put a foot wrong, and he really proved a point. Good for him. That's all I've been asking for from him. When he played against Southampton, I felt like he'd missed a little bit of an opportunity. Was it Southampton or one of the EFL Cup games? It might not have been Southampton, but one of them he didn't play particularly well. And it was like, that was your chance to really show it. And then I thought Will Fish, really, really good. Showed that, like, long-term, a partnership of him and Darland is super exciting, both with the ball, defensively, positionally, everything. Two young, real good defenders that I'm genuinely excited to see play together. Ruben Colwell didn't stop running. First half after the sending off, he was playing left wing and number 10, and he didn't stop running, trying to get across. But I mean, who else? El Ghazi, I thought, was pretty tidy when he came on. He just looks like a guy who hasn't played football, and then he hasn't. And that's ultimately it. Kean Ashford worked hard. He wasn't on long enough to really do anything. The rest of them, poor attitude, poor like implementation of their abilities, whatever you want to call it. But it's like the shambles that Cardiff City is. Chase Alex Robertson all season, one of the most highly rated young midfielders in the country, and then we refuse to play him. That's down to the manager. That's down to the manager, because I had a conversation with someone earlier, and it's like, why do you think he wants to sign experienced players and players who are 28, 29, 30? It's because he doesn't want, or he's not capable of, I don't know, coaching. You know, that guy who's left with him, Nikolai, you're not qualified to be an assistant manager or first team coach in the Championship. But only at Cardiff City do you allow anybody at a first team level to bring their best mate along and just give them a job. Absolutely insane. I'm trying to kind of focus it on bits and pieces. Of course, we're going to talk to Erol Bulut. We're going to talk about the whole culture of everything, but I'm trying to work through it, so bear with me. And yeah, I just thought the performance was absolutely disgusting on a day where the fans wanted to get behind the team. The fans wanted to be with the team, and they literally gave us nothing. Now, is that a tactical thing? Is that a player thing? Well, I think it's a mixture of both. But I agree with something that Reece said on last night's match reaction show. At what point do some of these players need to be, do we have to like hold them accountable for these managers just coming and going? Now, obviously, I'm not talking about the newer signings. I'm talking about the ones who've been there years, manager after manager, and kind of down tools a little bit, in my opinion. I really think that probably the last 3-4 weeks, they've just wanted rid of this manager, and I think they've let fans down. And it's almost like now, if we turn up in the next game, is that an indication that Erol Bulut was the problem, and Reece and the rest of the coaches can now implement what they've been trying to implement? Because I do think there's a little element of that. Bulut was kind of didn't want to go with what Reece was wanting to do from an attacking point of view. There was definitely a clash there in that sense. But if these players turn up and they've suddenly remembered how to run around, is that not disrespectful to the player, to the coach, and to the club, and to the fans? Like, I think it is a little bit. That what, you didn't care enough, that you don't like the manager. I don't need you to like the manager. I don't need you to be his friend. I need you to do your job and earn your wage and play for the badge. just so sick of modern football, man. It's embarrassing. Like, and honestly, a Leeds game, and I said to Thorny, who was sat next to me, I said, Jesus Christ, can you imagine, or even actually don't even need to imagine, go back to the FA Cup tie, which Cardiff City played against Leeds in Ninian Park all them years ago, and you watch the first couple of minutes, some of the tackles which Cav and Boland and co put in the first couple of minutes to let those players who were top of the Premier League at the time, England internationals, like Rio Ferdinand and Alan Smith and the rest of them, Viduka and all these people, they smashed into them. They were pressing them, and they let them know in the first 5 minutes they were in a match. And do you know what happened? The crowd, the atmosphere, the fans, it all lifted because the players looked like they cared. All I got from yesterday is these players not interested in playing for this manager, which means in turn they've decided they're not interested in playing for Cardiff City. And I tell you what, it's, you know, there's all sorts of names being thrown about and stuff, but there's a few players who I really, really I'd be having a serious think about their long-term future at the football club and whether they've got the right mentality to be successful at this level. Maybe that sounds like a bit over dramatic, but I just think it's a lack of respect to the football club that pays their wages. More importantly, a lack of respect to the fans. And I think, like if it was me, I'd be looking at that squad and I'd be having a real look at, because I think there's massive issues in the dressing room. There's clearly a big split where you've got probably got like a group of Erol Bulut people, and then you've got a group of the players who wanted him out. But look, right, that aside, I'm not just blaming the players. I just wanted to make a point that it's not just all on Erol Bulut. I think the players have to have some accountability. However, moving on to Erol Bulut, there has been big issues with him, with his tactics, the way he plays. He stabilised us last year. And here's a question which I'll put to the chat, right? And I'll put to everyone who's watching, and you can answer, and I'll go to the comments a bit later in the show. But this is the question I want to ask you. If Cardiff City had a proper football structure, like we've discussed on this channel and Ace Podcast Nation and live events constantly for years, right? If we had a proper football structure with, I know, a technical director and people who know football, making football decisions, and we had people there day to day running the football club, in the summer, would a competent football structure have said, right, they'd have looked at everything, looked at not just what's on the pitch, looked at the stabilization on the pitch, the finances, but they'd have also taken some feedback from the playing staff, the coaching staff, the people within the club. And I think it was clear that there was issues away from the matches and the training. There was issues with the type of coaching, the coaching level. And some of the players had some issues with it. And they took it to the board, or they took it to the club and said, look, there's some issues, which is why there was a change in coaching. But my question to you guys is, if we had a football structure, a proper, competent one, would they have looked at it overall and said, right, thank you very much for stabilizing us and keeping us away from the relegation zone, but due to a number of different aspects, we think it's better to move in a different direction. Thank you very much. Or would they have still given him that new contract? Because I can see the benefit. I fully understand that I was one of the people who said, give him a new contract. I think he's earned the right to try and build a team with his own players and actually be backed by the football club. I was wrong, and I'm hold my hands up at that. I was wrong, because I think you could see all the positivity and the hope from pre-season, whether it be signings or the change in shape, being a bit more aggressive in pre-season, the pressing being a bit more coherent. All of those things were gone by half-time in the Sunderland game, and they haven't come back at any point. Oh, wait a minute. They did come back in the EFL Cup games when the younger players played and they had a bit more freedom to go with it. I think look, there's a lot, of course, there's many aspects which went into whether he got a contract and stuff like that. It's difficult. I do understand why they gave him a contract, but I just question whether, with a football structure, would that decision have been made? Would their cooler heads have prevailed? Would they have been a bit more, I can't think of the word, but like clinical in the way they looked at it? And would they have just said, thank you for what you've done, but we're going to move in a different direction? I don't know the answer to that, but I'm interested in what you guys think. Because it's clear that there was an issue which kind of dragged in from last year, and then that's kind of continued. And that's before you even get to the style of play and the tactics and the negative way that we've gone about business. My biggest issue, and I said this the other day, is I don't mind losing a game of football. I can get over that. But I want to lose a game of football trying to win, not lose a game of football trying not to lose, especially at home. I understand that at certain points you've got to shut up shop and you've got to, park the bus a little bit away from home or against a big team. I understand there's different moments and aspects of football matches that you have to take into account. But Jesus, like we haven't tried to win one game of football this year. I don't think. Like we're just hanging in, trying to get a draw. Now, I think that the signings we made in the summer, I still believe that we had a good transfer window. Now, I understand what people's issues are with the striker position, and the Simic one is infuriating that we had to kind of loan him out because the squad was too big and we couldn't get all the players out that we wanted to get out. But that's down to organisation and the football club in it and the football structure. Come on. Like, how can you get to the final day of the transfer window and have too many players in your squad? So you sign a striker, which you desperately need, and you've got to loan him out because you've got too many players in the playing squad. That's a bit of a mad one. But I look at it and El Ghazi, it won't be too long before he's fully fit. Will Fish, I've already mentioned. I think he's going to be a real player for us going forward. Darlin, the same. Alex Robertson, hopefully we can see him regularly play now, and I think he'll make a massive difference. Like I said, in the summer, I felt like a number 8 was almost as important as a striker. And I'd like to see some of these youngsters getting some game time, because are they going to be worse than what we're seeing? Look, with the greatest of respect, Perry NG, on his day, is one of the best right backs in the Championship. But he hasn't had his day since probably the January transfer window. He's been poor, and it's got progressively worse from January through to the end of the season. And this season, he's been very poor, apart from the odd half. And it's tricky because you don't want to just chuck the youngsters in and then they, if they have an issue, and it is a difficult league. But like, at some point, we've got to do something different. Doing the same thing over and over again, and I'm talking like this season and game to game, like doing the same thing week in, week out and expecting different results is mad to me. And the worrying thing, really worrying in the last sort of 2-3 weeks, is I quite enjoyed Erol Bulut's press conferences last year. I quite liked that he was quite combative and he would have a bit of a call out with the board. I don't necessarily think it's the way to go, but they were entertaining, at least, to give you something to talk about. They weren't just the same old tripe. But I always do say that you can't believe managers' press conferences anyway. But some of the stuff he's come out with in the last 3 weeks about we're playing well, we're creating chances. Like, I'm stuck between, is he kind of just fighting was he just trying to fight his corner? Or does he actually believe that? Because if he believes that, like, that's a massive issue. Now, it's clear I know they nearly sacked him after the Borough game. I know that because that Saturday night, I had a thumbnail and a video ready to go, and I was going to go live late on Saturday night. I was just waiting for the text to come in, and I know it was that close. And I think probably Mehmet Darwin saved his job. I would imagine, because he was the only one who was kind of fighting his corner by the end. But I also know that Mehmet Dalman reportedly left early yesterday, was furious. I would imagine by the performance, like we all were. And I've heard today through a couple of people that he was not very happy when those images were circulating after the game with the bench sat on their ass during the 14th minute clapping. So, it is what it is. Like I've said numerous times, and for people who haven't heard it, is I think that Mehmet Dalman and maybe Kenneth Joe can be assets to Cardiff City, but not as the people making the football decisions. However, I will also say that ultimately they don't really make the decisions. It's the owner who has the final say on everything. But for me, while you've got the manager, the board, the owner, and there's nobody from the manager to the owner who knows anything about football, from the inner workings to it, like the transfers, the scouting, like there's nobody running it who's got a genuine football knowledge, experience, anything. And I understand why Vincent Tan, he had his fingers burnt with Ian Moody for a variety of reasons, which we don't need to go into this evening. But I understand all that. But Jesus Christ, you're telling me in every other business that he has, particularly the gambling business, which he's so successful in, with casinos and stuff, that you're telling me that he doesn't have experts in their field running each thing. It's mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing that we don't have football people running a football club. And I will never understand it. Never, ever, ever understand it. And I think it's cost, what's cost Vincent Tan more? The amount of money that we're paying to a former manager who's a advisor, which, Jesus Christ, that is the most insane thing I've heard, because he was one of the worst managers we ever had. But anyway, that's another story. The ex-managers that we've had to pay off, the players that we're still paying their full wages, but we had to loan out because they had a bad attitude. All the money we've wasted on transfers, on subpar players who were never, ever going to be good enough. And here's another thing, just going back to yesterday's game, by the way, right? I have a certain amount of sympathy for Kanga in that, you could have bloody R9, you could have Cristiano Ronaldo, you could have anyone up there, and Mbappe up there, and they wouldn't do nothing because we don't get the ball to them. But that doesn't stop him battling for the ball. That doesn't stop him showing for the ball. It doesn't stop him pressing and working hard. And at the moment, as it stands, I think he looks like a player who's just collecting his paycheck and doesn't care. Now, maybe I'm doing him a disservice there, and maybe when we set up a bit different with a different team and different way of playing, you'll see a different player, because he has scored goals elsewhere. So maybe you can. I wouldn't say you could forgive it, because I don't forgive a lack of effort. I think there's no excuse for it. But seriously, I couldn't believe he was just walking. A lot of it is real bad to watch. Right, let's have a look at some of these comments, and then I'll talk a little bit about the timeline of stuff. So go back. Lots and lots of comments, so I'm just going to flip through a couple. Jeff says, the right decision's been made. Let's give Reset a chance. Jonathan said, need to make the right decision this time, not only to get the players playing, but get them motivated and working. Unfortunately, I have no confidence our board will make the right decision. Yeah, it's a difficult one. Slope Roads Blue says, never on time. It's like fashion. Yeah, I'm always about 5 minutes late, mate. So this is an interesting one. Kyle says, Nathan Jones for next manager for me. To Cardiff fan, it's logical. So Nathan Jones is a fascinating one for me, because I know we did, or the club did a workup on him previously, and one of the plus points was they felt like he would unite the fan base. Obviously, he can work on a budget, plays fairly decent football, can work with younger players. A lot of boxes were ticked. But I'm led to believe one of the issues was they weren't sure if he would be able to work under like Vincent Tan's ownership and stuff, and there might be a bit of a clash there. But I have reason to believe that has changed somewhere, because apparently he was one of the ones which we kind of put a few feelers out to in the summer. Should Erol Bulut have not signed that contract, or we didn't sign into a new contract, he was one of the ones who we kind of put a few feelers out for. Someone texted me this morning and said that we've already kind of sent some initial feelers out to Charlton today about him. But I will add, that's not from someone, not someone that I read it from two people, but not like someone where I put my hat on it. Normally, it's not where I normally would be told things. So I couldn't say with any certainty with that one. But I mean, maybe it does line up a little bit. He wouldn't be my choice, but I wouldn't be like against it. There's a couple of the names I've seen which have been kind of floated about, and I'm like, oh God, no. But he's not one of those. Like, I wouldn't be I wouldn't be against him, but he wouldn't be just personally be my choice. Martin says we did the same against them last year. So passive. Yeah, it's embarrassing. It was embarrassing, mate. Bob Bank 27 says, bar the Robbo goal against the Jacks, when was the last time we scored a really good footballing goal? I generally can't think of one. Well, I mean, we scored a few good goals in the EFL Cup this year. Martin also says, and this I agree with, the culture in the first team squad is appalling. Yeah, I want to see a big change in it, mate. And I know that there's been some issues within that changing room, and maybe it's just kind of been a snowball effect because there's been issues with the manager. And if you see the manager arguing with the coaches and fighting with the coaches like all the time, it's not going to have a positive effect on the team, is it? So everything which I said at the start stands. I want to see an improvement in the work rate and the attitude and the application from the whole team. Martin also says Chambers' reputation and no substance. I disagree with that. I thought he had a bad game yesterday, but I think he's been pretty solid this season. Certainly a lot better than Gutless. But equally, when Darling the Fisher, I at the moment would certainly, from what I've seen of all of them, I would pick those two over Chambers. And my led to believe that he doesn't want to play right back. So if that's the case, he might find himself on the bench unless we switch to a 3. And that'll be interesting, is like, how will Omar Issa and Tom Ramsholt and the rest of them, like the people who are still there, how will they change the setup? How will they change the personnel? How will they change the team? That I am really, really interested by that. Sober Road, very astute. There's only been certain people there for years in that starting 11, yeah. Lay put the pieces together, mate. Paul says performances haven't been right for a long time. What happened with Wintle? I don't know, but that situation is a problem with NG being good friends. Oh, mate. There's a lot to that. And here's the thing, right, with the Ryan Wintle situation. I was quite critical of Ryan Wintle for the way he conducted himself. But what you can say about him, right, with Ryan Wintle is he does work hard when he plays. And I think he was asked by Erol Bulut to play a role at times last year where he was just never comfortable and probably not technically the player to do it. Like, at one point he was playing in number 10. Like, what the flipping hell is that about? But equally, I think he's a player who is not afraid to voice his opinion to the manager, to the coaches, whatever it may be. But you've also got to do it in a way which isn't going to disrupt the team. Like, first and foremost has to be the football club. First and foremost has to be the morale within the team. And you've got to have the right attitude at all times. You've got to be professional. Reese says, shows a lack of respect towards the fans. They represent us. If they don't like the manager, fine. Keep that behind closed doors, but don't disrespect the badge and the fans like that. Yeah, 100% agree, mate. 100% agree with that. So Jeff says, I think the players did us a favour. As a union man, the best way to deal with an stringent manager is to work to rule. The problem is, mate, is I haven't got a problem with them following tactical instructions. So if they were instructed to hold their shape and retreat and don't engage until 30 yards out and all that, that's fine. It's not what I would do, and it's not, I don't like it. But if that's the tactical instructions that the manager's giving you, then of course do it. What I cannot fathom or accept is lack of effort, work rate, attitude, etc., or just being what they were and what they have been. Like, that's not good enough, because I don't need you to be mates with a manager. I'll say again, what I need you to do is do your job, and I think too many getting paid a lot of money to not do that recently. But I accept what you mean. And Bob Bank 27 says, to be honest, Wintle isn't a player that will win you promotion from a championship. He's fallen out with Bulut and is the reason why we're underperforming. And no player is bigger than a club. 100%, mate. 100%. And when I say this, right, no player is bigger than a football club. Okay? Not one player in that squad is bigger than the football club. And when the new manager is in place, I would love to say when the new structure is in place, then we're going to have a full-on football structure. I would love to see a full-on detailed look from top to bottom of the squads, the club, the coaching, everything, and then really put it under the microscope and work out which ones have got the right mentality and attitude to go and take us to where we want to get to. But we shall see. Robert says, called it last season. Bulut was negative. 2-year deal, cost the club big time. Now let's go get Nathan Jones. Yeah, Nathan Jones seems like the popular choice amongst people. I think he unites the fan base, mate, without a doubt. And I think that's what we need, because the fan base is like, yeah, it's brutal at the moment. Wayne Davis says, the players wanted him out and made sure damn sure we lost. We went forward a few times and then turned back, went backwards. That's not in the way of teaching. They simply gave up. So with that, I 100% agree with you, mate. But what I've heard in the last 12 months a lot is that some of these players, particularly maybe like your Ollie Tanners, your Ruben Colwells, your ball carriers, yeah, your more direct players. It's my kind of understanding that they're almost scared to take a risk and lose a ball because he holds them off, or he drops them because they're giving the ball away. So if they're in a situation where they haven't really got anything on, but they're like one-on-one with a fullback, instead of trying to beat him like they probably would if they were just going naturally and going with how they feel and the natural way of playing, they try and beat the fullback and go from there, make some space and do something. But they're almost scared to lose the ball because of the consequences from this manager or from that manager. So they turn and they go back and they keep holding the ball because he wants to keep holding the ball all the time. So yeah, I think they, like, I agree with you 100%. I do think there was too many like just down tools, as I said, but I also think that there's an element of tactically he was so stringent on not losing the ball that they kind of became frightened to take a risk. Like, when was the last time you see us play like a defense splitting pass? That, like, Joe Rolls, we used to be good at that, like playing a pass through the lines from deep in midfield. That's one of the tools in his box. Nothing. I can't even remember the last time I saw it. I saw Darlin do it a couple of times earlier in the season. He's injured now, obviously. Alex Robertson, I thought, was brought in to play that kind of box-to-box role and to be that midfielder, the ball-playing midfielder who's technically proficient, who can play those line-splitting passes. But is that why he was dropped? Because he was trying to be too aggressive? I don't know. Bizarre. Sloper Road Blue says, looking back, I think they only gave him a contract because of fan pressure. Yeah, possibly. Reece said last night that we could not afford to get relegated. I think it could be what is needed to get rid of some of these overplayed and start again. Sheffield United, Leicester, Southampton, Ipswich, Wolves. Yeah, I think the problem is, and we talked about this earlier this year in great detail, and I'm not going to get into it in massive detail now. The problem is we are on a bit of a financial knife edge, and the club would be in trouble if we get relegated big time. So we have to. Whilst I accept people, I've seen a few people saying it, like the best thing that could happen would be to go down, have a bit of a culling of the squad and the club, and then build back up. But you've got to be careful with that. And ultimately, mate, guys, like the season is like still September. Like if we can put a winning run together, like we can still do something this season. Never mind relegation. Got a good squad. You just need to get a bit of momentum and get playing. And I'd be fascinated to see what Omar Reeses and co are gonna, how they're gonna set up. Are they gonna set up differently? Are they gonna go three at the back? Are they gonna play 4-2-3-1? Are they gonna be more fluid? Are they gonna revert back to the shape we saw in pre-season, where the fullbacks are like right up as like wingers, and you just have Siopis sat in front of the defense, or Joe Rawls or someone? Like, I will be fascinated to see if that shape comes back, because we just abandoned it straight away, and that was disappointing to say the least. Right, so look. Paul says, if we had a proper football structure, we wouldn't be in the mess with proper football men. Tan needs to understand football is different to business. But the thing is, mate, he does, of course. But like, also, all businesses are different. And like, I don't know. Say I won the Euro Millions, right? And I had a few different businesses. And one of them was, I'm going to plug something out here, right? One of them was a fishing business, right? I know absolutely jack shit about fishing. So do you know what I would do? With all my millions, I would find the best in the country or Europe at fishing. And I would go and have a meeting with them, and I would speak to them about a project and blah, blah, what their plans are and what would they do and blah. And then I would get the best possible candidate to run my fishing division. And then my tire business, I would get someone who's an expert in tires, because I don't know anything about tires either. Do you see what I mean? Like, you get experts to run what they're experts in, and you get the best that you can possibly get for the budget you've got, and you get people who are forward thinking. You get people who think outside the box and can be creative. And my problem with Cardiff City is deep. Like, we are so behind the times in everything, in the way we analyze games, the way the social media works, the way the YouTube works. We're so behind the times. It's unreal. And, you know, I've attempted to have conversations with them, because I think they're so behind the times with their social media and YouTube and stuff. And that's another story. But we're just behind the times in every aspect. And Erol Bulut, unfortunately, like, I think maybe, and this is not based on any information, just like hypothesizing a little bit, but like maybe the board thought in Erol Bulut they were getting a young progressive manager who was tactically astute and able to be flexible and adjust and play like a decent possession-based game, but be flexible. Unfortunately, what we ended up with, I think, was a young manager, or a youngish manager, who's a bit behind the times in the way the game's changed. Like, tactically, the game's changed massively. In the last 5 years, the game's changed massively. And the Championship is so competitive. There's no easy games. And most teams have got like a good 11 at least. But most of the teams are pretty well coached these days. There's some excellent coaches out there. You know, of course, there's good managers, but there's excellent coaches, young coaches out there who are, you know, just come out of the game or just young, and they're so progressive in the way they think and the way they set up and the drills they do and the way they look at the game tactically. You know, these young guys, you know, younger than me, like they look at the game different, and they see it differently. But Cardiff is so slow to work with these types of people. We're still stuck in 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Like, the game's moved on in many, many aspects. Reese says, my big worry now, will a new manager come in and say, I don't rate these youngsters? Yeah, but I mean, the other side of that is, mate, if a new manager comes in and doesn't rate a couple of them, not a lot changes because they don't play anyway. So I accept your worry, of course. Martin says Fish and Darland, both exciting signings on the evidence we've witnessed. Yeah, I agree, mate. I'm really excited by them. And yeah. And do you know what? I know he's become almost like a bit of a scapegoat this season, Psyopis. But if the new manager can get Psyopis on side and get him to just be an out-and-out six who just sits in front of the defence, wins the ball back and moves it, and that's all he does, I think he can be so effective. But if he's going to continue doing what he's doing, or what he has been doing this season, on the current squad, I would probably play Rawls there and just ask him to do that, because he reads the game pretty well and can just move it, and then Robertson alongside him for the legs, because the game's changed. So what else we got? Lee Chant says, let's be honest, manager just got 1 or 2 million for 6 games because of a lack of football knowledge, plus the millions we lost in transfers. You're not wrong, mate. Steve Lockwood says Bulut won't get millions, few hundred grand at most. That is where you are incorrect, my friend. Erol Bulut is approximately, or was approximately, on about 30 grand a week, and he will. There's a buyout clause in his contract, but it doesn't activate until January, which means that we will have to pay him out in full unless they can come to some sort of financial agreement. So contract wise, he's pretty much entitled to his whatever his contract is, 2 years or whatever. But there, with the obvious caveat being that there was a buyout clause in January and the summer for, I'm not sure if it was for both sides or for just for the club, but I think what they can do is hopefully they'll be able to come some sort of agreement. But we're still paying managers from years ago. Jesus Christ. Let's have a look. Jeff says, Ref Perry, I got into the ground 70 minutes before kickoff, came out of the tunnel with Len Noakes, walked to the canton end, deep in conversation with Noakes, who led the talk with NG nodding. Steve says, here we use agents over scouts to find players. I'm surprised we would. Kyle, not impressed with Kanga. I mean, yeah. Matthew says, looking at the short list of managers, who would you pick? I will have a look at that short list now, mate, and see. Give you my opinion. Steve said, anyway, who's the next manager? Jonathan says, it's not just the striker. We can't get the ball. 2, we can't get the ball in the final third. We just walk. We just get our halfway and pass back to defence. Yeah, it's poor, mate. Martin says, Brian Barry Murphy or Dave Challoner. Brian Barry Murphy is someone who really interests me, I gotta say. Les Caswell says, the next appointment is crucial. How many times have we heard this before? The cycle continues. 100%. Louise says, what the hell was he thinking? The bench not standing and clapping. That's the reason that got him definitely sacked. I think, I don't think that's the reason he got sacked, but I think that might have been the final straw for any supporters he had, because there was no excuse for that. No excuse. I know for a fact it was communicated to everyone. I know it as a fact that it was communicated to everyone. Staff, players, everybody knew about it. Everybody knew about it. It's just bullshit. If there's any excuse, whatever the excuse is, it's bullshit. I'm telling you now. And I will go to my grave with that. It was disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful. Louise says Nathan Jones, good player in his time, but non-manager material. I don't know. But then my worry with Nathan Jones is he hasn't really succeeded at anywhere but Luton. He did really well in both his spells at Luton, but whenever he's gone elsewhere, he's kind of struggled a little bit. But maybe he'll be different. Like he's Cardiff bored, he's Cardiff fan. He maybe, and I've said this many times, sometimes it's just there might be someone out there who like everyone's like, "What, really him?" And they might just be the fit. Sometimes it's just the right player, the right manager, the right coach, and they've been awful elsewhere. And then they go to a club and it just clicks. It's the right area, it's the right people, it's the right everything around you, it's the right fan base, right club, like everything is just there, it's just right. And then you can go somewhere else and it's not right again. So who knows? Oh, Jonathan, don't, mate. Jonathan says, what's the odds that Tan goes back for Steve Morrison and we still won't be able to get the ball in the attacking half? Please don't. Don't even joke about it, mate. Don't even joke about it. I just want a manager who's fluid, reacts to how the match is going. Koberian is a fantastic example of that. Tanner could be lethal. Louise says Erol Bulut was good for the first season, but this season he just couldn't be asked. I know there's some people who like just feel like he, once he got his contract, he was just all about the paycheck. So Steve Lockwood says Des Buckingham, Oxford manager. That is one that has come up. I know the FAW had a little chat with him previously. And I know there's definitely people within the club who got an eye on him, should we say? But he wouldn't be my choice, but I can see the benefits of him also. Let's have a look. Yeah, Ryan Winsel's Instagram story and James Kroll's. I don't think. Look, I understand it. They obviously fell out with him and stuff. I don't think you should celebrate people losing their job, personally. And I certainly, if you care about Cardiff City, the state of the club as a whole isn't something to be celebrated, regardless if you want to pull it out. And I 100% it was the time for him to go. They probably should have done it after the Borough game, in fairness, to have the international break to assess and stuff. But like, I can't celebrate it because the club, which I love, is in an absolute just mess from top to bottom. So Wayne says 2 minutes into the game, the ball bounced up, sat perfect for Colwell to volley, and he chose to pass it straight to Leeds instead. They didn't win yesterday, or they would have had to keep Bulut. I also think, though, mate, this is the thing, right? In the second half when we're chasing the goal, when Ruben Colwell shot and he went over the bar. If you watch the highlights or if you watch the match back, go and have to see if you can get a shot of Erol Bulut's reaction after he shot, because he didn't pass and keep possession. And that's when you're chasing a goal. It's 1-0 at that point. This is an interesting one. So Tim says, what does Ramsey do in the changing room? Shouldn't he step up to be player coach? There was rumours after the Borough game that he was offered the opportunity to take over as player coach till the end of the season, or on an interim basis. However, I had that confirmed by an exquisite source that wasn't the case. Now, I also had someone from Sky Sports who I know contact me and say that he turned it down. But as far as I know, and I've got no reason to believe that it was anything but the truth, was that it was not offered to him. Now, I think it would be a huge ask for him to be a player coach. Yeah, player manager. I think is a massive ask for him. He's only just done his badges and stuff. It would be massive ask. So it'll be and the problem is now is like There is all sorts of rumors and stuff going around. And I think people, it's the social media age, isn't it? And the speculation is running wild. And there will be like people now who will be falling over themselves to tell us, leak the stories about Bulut and this and that. And for me, I just think like all I'm interested in is getting Cardiff City back to where we should be, getting that changing room all pulling in the right direction, getting the team united and playing football, because Jesus Christ, we got some wicked footballers in that team. Like, you imagine, right, if whether it's Risa and co or whether we get someone else in now, you imagine if we can get like El Ghazi and Willer and Colwell and Tanner and get them all clicking, Ramsey and Robertson. We get them clicking and playing football, like 1-2 touch, pass and move. Jesus Christ, there's some footballers in that team. But we haven't seen it. We haven't seen it. Nathan. I can't answer that, mate. Not publicly, at least. There we go, Jamie, my boy. Jamie Anderson says, ownership of actions, too many players passing the responsibility onto others. It's not been good enough from anyone. And I think it's pretty much sums up like what I've been saying. Absolutely. 100%, mate. And it is what it is. Martin says, if you watch Darren Pearce's under-21s team, they do not play like the first team. It makes no sense tactically, and it makes no sense in terms of development. That's because the manager of the under-21s team wants to play football a certain way. But yeah, I agree with you, really. Like, from 18s upwards, they should all be playing the same way. But look, you go and watch the under-21s, mate. They play wicked football. And I think Darren Pearce, and admittedly, I'm a bit biased, but I think he's doing a tremendous job. I think when you look at the players who we should have had in the first team squad this year, Conte, Eli King, Kay Pacquiao, Louis Giles, Bagan, both Corwells, like all of them are knocking on the door for the first team, and he's brought them through with his with the other coaches. So yeah, there's that. Holton says, does Nathan Jones play good football? I don't think he plays like exceptional football, but like I don't think he's not like Mick McCarthy's job or like Erol Bulut. Like, it's like somewhere in between. He plays better football than. So Renario says, I expect us to go with a safe option like Alex Neil or Gary Rowett. I would not be against Gary Rowett. He wouldn't be my choice personally, but I wouldn't be against him. I think he plays good football and he works well with young players. Alex Neil, I think, would be a massive step backwards. But that's just, again, it's just my opinion, mate. And, I saw people have said like different names and stuff. Some I think would be massive step back. Some I think would be all right. Some I'm not sure about. It's good to see Jamal Collins back on the pitch. Right, I'm going to kind of round it up there and that. So I'm hosting, I'm filling in for Steve tomorrow on a Cardiff City phone-in. Cardiff City phone-in will be on Cardiff City World, 7 o'clock, with a panel of guests. We'll be talking about the game against Leeds. We'll be talking about Bulut, and I think I'll do a video as well. I've been collating some information and from different sources who I trust, and who are kind of like top tier. And I'm kind of collating a bit of a timeline of everything which has gone on this week and over the last few weeks. So I'll probably make like a little video about that this week at some point. I've just had a text, which has just come up on my WhatsApp at the top of the screen about someone who is in the picture for the job, and I'm not sure how I feel about it, but it's a big name, and we know Vincent Han loves a big name. But yeah, I did say that to Rhodri the other week as well. There we go. Guys, thank you ever so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Hundreds of people watching live, and loads and loads of comments. I do apologise if we didn't get your comment. I tried to fly through as many as I could. And as always, I've tried to be as upfront and honest as I can. It's just one of them things where obviously there's some things I can kind of openly say, and then there's some things I've got to be a bit more careful with how I say. But it is what it is. Erol Bulut is gone from Cardiff City. Cardiff City now, the most important thing is the players have got to sort themselves out and do what they got to act like grown-ups. Act like grown-ups, act like professionals, do your job and play for the badge. Because I tell you what, they owe the fans a performance, those players. I really, 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 really feel let down by the players as a fan. But of course, the manager has been a big part of the issues, haven't it? Of course it is. But thank you so much to everyone who's dropped comments, likes, and all that stuff. Please do share it and spread the word. Tell your Cardiff City mates about it. Cardiff City World. Subscribe 7 days a week. Cardiff City content. We have the Flower Hour Wednesday. We'll have Thursday, and there's all sorts of stuff coming up this week. Also got the Joe Ledley live podcast video, which is going to be coming out soon as well as the Willie Boland one. So look out for them. We've also got our Question of Sport parody, which is called The Question of Cardiff City, coming out soon as well. So there's loads and loads of stuff coming up. If you'd like to be a member, there's details in below. You get loads of other stuff. They host 6 performances. Yes, they do, mate. Mate, I just want to address this very quickly. If Frank Lampard becomes the Cardiff City manager, I'm not entirely sure that my head will take it, because him and Steven Gerrard are two of the worst managers that I have ever witnessed. And I'm not sure I will be able to keep my head, and I certainly won't be able to do an hour and 2 minutes without swearing. Join me for the Cardiff City phone-in tomorrow, where we'll have a panel of fans to discuss it in more detail. And if you're a member of Ace Podcast Nation, we'll have the member show tomorrow night as well. But until then, I bid you farewell. Thank you very much. Keep the faith, because we'll be there next week, even if they're not. Nice one.